Focus. The zone, aka flow. A state you're in when nothing in the world matters. You're so focused on what you're doing that everything else falls away. I get my flow from running. The wind blowing through my hair, arms pumping at my sides, and feet hitting the pavement. I noticed when I got into the zone, I was happy, excited, productive, and content. I'm not the only one. Athletes, artists, musicians have talked about this feeling of flow. We've all felt it. World-renowned psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi discovered and coined the term flow and has dedicated his life to doing research on flow and how it leads to a happier, more fulfilled life. I had the honor of speaking with the man himself. Can you just give a quick summary of what flow is?
It's the feeling that we get when we get completely immersed in what you're doing. So you're focusing all your attention on something that you want to experience. And it's what makes life kind of really interesting and worth living.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who's sort of the godfather of flow psychology.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Now this author's name is Mihaly. His book is called Flow. You can also watch his TED Talk.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi is kinda a big deal. And in our search for flow, my team and I reached out to the founding father himself. We scheduled a Skype interview, but experienced some technical difficulties. So we set out to meet the professor, psychologist, and author at his office at Claremont Graduate University.
Last year when I was asked to Budapest to talk with the Prime Minister and plan how to change the educational system in Hungary. The Prime Minister and Viktor Orbán. This is the president of the country. It's not just human beings who feel it. I noticed we had a hunting dog, and when we were in Chicago in the city, he was always kind of bored. But you took him out in the forest and he became a different animal because all of his genetic equipment was focused on the smell and the lights of the foliage in the trees. Living beings like to live. They like to be involved in what happens in the world with their body, with their mind, with their attention. So this is what I gave the name flow to.
Besides neuroanatomical changes in flow, there are neurochemical changes, right? The brain produces a giant cascade of neurochemistry. You get norepinephrine, dopamine, anandamide, serotonin, and endorphins. All 5 of these are performance-enhancing neurochemicals.
The neurochemicals released during the flow state make us feel like our senses are heightened, just like the hunting dog in the forest. Norepinephrine and dopamine enable the brain to take in more information, process it more deeply and quickly. Ever notice that when you're in flow, you can suddenly link ideas together and see patterns you couldn't before?
Lomachenko with the right hand. Koasica is being dominated here. He was losing to Lee Selby in Wales.
These chemicals lower signal-to-noise ratio, so you detect more patterns. At the same time, the neurochemical anandamide promotes lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is a linking of very incompatible ideas together, so you're making all kinds of connections. I think it was in one of your books. A good way to sum up flow is you stay in the present, but you also focus on your long-term goals as well.
You can be in flow without thinking about long-term goals, but the ideal is to find flow in things that will grow and that will make you a better musician or a better athlete or a better whatever you find flow in. You can't stay at the same level without getting bored after a while. You have to have higher challenge, higher challenge, higher challenge. But to have a higher challenge and be in flow, you have to have higher skills. Really, flow is the mechanism for growth. It's amazing when we started studying people who have normal, regular jobs, you find that among the people who do that kind of job, some are in flow most of the time because they are able to focus on the goal and what they want to do. And it may be, an assembly line worker who has to do one movement every 48 seconds. Some of those people are able to have a higher goal, a more complex challenge. Now they do it a little faster or a little more precisely.
In order to get to the flow state, there must be a balance between the challenge of the task and the skill of the performer. If the challenge is too low and you have low skills, you feel apathetic. If the challenge is low and you have mediocre skills, you feel boredom. But if the task is too challenging and you have low skills, you arouse feelings of anxiety. It's about finding the sweet spot.
Flow shows up best when the challenge of the task at hand slightly exceeds your skill set.
The challenge must be adjusted in order to keep you in flow. The concept of flow is an autotelic concept.
Yeah. Even though often you do it in an exotelic context. For instance, a surgeon gets paid because he saves the life of a patient. But a good surgeon does surgery because he enjoys helping a person or making a person whole again. And so you do an exotelic job because you get paid from the external world, you're recognized. But a good surgeon really does it for autotelic reasons. Unfortunately, most people do their job only because of the exotelic, the external reward.
Do you think that flow can ever be a negative thing?
People find these experiences really addictive and they orient their lives around having these experiences.
There are people who get flow from hurting other people or from stealing. One of my students did an interesting study of flow among thieves. Unless you begin to experience flow with your children, with your spouse, that can become your whole life.
In your book, Creativity, Flow, and the Psychology of Discovery and Invention, you say it is easier to enhance creativity changing conditions in the environment than by trying to make people think more creatively.
One of the ways that people show creativity is by changing their environment, their job, their family environment, whatever. Changing them so that it produces more flow.
It is weird how certain songs will trigger like some sort of inspirational creativity inside of you.
In a series of lab and semi-field experiments conducted by Juliet Zhu, it was found that environmental factors like lighting, ceiling height, music, background color, and number of people surrounding you affects a person's creativity. They found that creativity reaches peak levels when background noise is at about 70 to 80 decibel points. Too much or even too little noise are not ideal. Lighting. In a dimly lit room, people were found to be more creative and were able to make more lateral, meaning unrelated and complex connections. What do you think the future looks like for us with the advancement of technology? How quickly we're moving?
It will have difficulties, but I think we are equipped to learn to move with this. I got letters from generals in the Air Force who read my book and said, is this really applicable? Our problem is that we are training people in the Air Force to go into space. They will be alone in the space shuttle for weeks and weeks. And we are afraid that they will go out of their mind or something, and or the Navy have similar problems, that we have these highly trained sailors. Some of these ships have to go in the ocean for months. I have 2 or 3 former students who are working in the Navy. They are officers in the Navy, and all they do is try to apply what they learned in flow in the Navy. There's always new situations as technology becomes more and more pervasive.
Well, thank you so much for doing this.
I hope that whoever sees this will get more flow out of life and will learn it and teach it to their children and to their friends and so forth.
Thank you guys for watching. Bye.